and gentlemen, welcome to my channel. Today in this video, we're going to dive into a historic moment in American chess. And it is the reign of none other than Fabiano Caruana. Now, picture this first of all. St. Louis, the Grand Hall of the St. Louis Chess Club, the tension is thick in the air, and we have pieces poised, with their Fabiano applying pressure just like a world-class sniper. He has just did another huge step, and he has just won his fourth consecutive U.S. championship in 2025. This is fourth in a row and an extremely impressive thing to do, tying the legendary Bobby Fischer's record of 4 in a row. And will he be able to break the record in the next year with winning 5 in a row? It's not just like another trophy, of course. It's a statement. Now, in this event, he posted a final score of 8 out of 11, which is really incredible, and edging out his closest rival, Wesley So, with just half a point, but is a very important half a point. Every draw, every subtle maneuver here counts. There were no Fury fireworks in the final round, where 6 games in the open section all ended in draws. So this just meant that the victories have been sealed before the final move, and there's no tiebreaks or anything. But still, it is very thrilling to watch, because even though there are no blitz games or playoffs being played in this tournament, but the games are still extremely full of ups and downs and worth for us to enjoy. But the drama was in the accumulation, in the relentlessness, as we say. And one of the highlight moments, there are of course many highlight moments, but Fabiano, he unleashed a thrilling attack with the black pieces in round 7, I believe, against one of also the strongest grandmasters in the United States as well as in the world, Hans Niemann. So Fabi played with the black pieces and Hans is with the white pieces. In that game, Fabiano, he had his pawns storming on the king's side. It was really incredible and aggressive play by him. The initiative shifting, and there's just checkmate, looming. So he also had an unfortunate game against Wesley So a few days earlier. That time he had missed a maiden 9, and unfortunately he missed it. But this, after playing a game against Hans, this just felt like some redemption. And that's the essence, a champion who doesn't just win but learns, adapts, and comes back stronger every time. Now, besides for the open section where Fabi had an impressive 4 in a row win, we also have the women's section where we have its own hero, and it is once again Carissa Yip. She had clinched her 3rd straight win in a row. But today, of course, our spotlight is on Fabiano, because his performance tells a story of precision under pressure and of consistency on the big stage. Alright, so now let's buckle up, and after this long introduction of this whole tournament and the winners, let's now walk into one of the games that Fabi has played in this tournament, and it is the game that he has played with the black pieces against Hans Niemann, and it is move by move, decision by decision, and let's see how it has shown exactly how a champion thinks when the stakes are high. Alright, so now this is the news, the article written after this whole tournament. We have Fabiano Yip repeats as U.S. champions once again, and we are expecting for some more interesting outcomes in the next year's U.S. championship. But now, alright, let's focus on this game where Fabi is with the black pieces playing against Hans Niemann, a very strong opponent. E4, E5, knight C6, bishop C4. We have this very common Italian game once again played by these two strong players, D6, and here's C3. So don't forget, this is also classical chess. So players, they have time to prepare for the openings before the game, and also they have a bunch of time to think while playing. F5. Now this is actually something quite maybe unexpected, because F5 is definitely not what most people play here. It's usually bishop E7 or knight F6 just to simply develop. But F5 is like a move here that Fabi actually spent 6 minutes thinking. So I'm not sure if it's in his own preparation, or he wants to confuse his opponent, or to remember the lines. So here, Hans also starts to think about 5 minutes and play this very calm move D3 to not do anything, because the other option here is to take on F5, but this will be really complex after bishop takes F5 and now castles. But as you can see, the pawn structure is quite unbalanced and it's full of calculations and everything. So D3 is definitely a more compositional move. And here Queen F6 was played. And Hans here spent some 3 minutes thinking and played the move short castle. Looks really reasonable. But here, the problem with the move short castle is that, as you can see, Fabi had played this move Queen F6. And this is a very flexible move, because if, for example, white were to keep on just developing, let's say bishop G5, the queen goes to here, threatens H6, threatens the pawn on G2. So knight BD2, let's say if black just ignores it, now you could play H6, or you could also just decide to develop your pieces and so on. So if white were to play normally, then black will also do the same. But here the problem is that, I guess this is what Fabi is expecting from Hans, is that if white here were to go for this really normal looking move, short castle, then black's idea here will be to go immediately for this move F4 to block this diagonal of the bishop. Oops, that's a wrong arrow. Another wrong arrow like this one. This diagonal, here probably black is going to go for some attack similar to the King's Indian defense, if you guys are familiar with that, where black is going to push all of the pawns, close up the center, and white is going to launch the attack on the queen side. But at this point, black is really fast with the attack with the pawn pushes. Whereas for white, probably the best idea here is to trying to break through in the center of the board, and that is a little bit slow. Hans here plays b4, so his idea of going to improve on the queen side, knight g7, developing the piece, a4. But since black's king is not on the queen side, it is not as deadly as any king side attacks here. And Fabi just, boom, goes g5 immediately, with the unstoppable idea of g4. So here Hans thought that, okay, g4 is unstoppable, now it's just a matter of speed between these two players, and I'm just going to play b5. And Hans plays b5. Knight drops back to d8, but also this knight could go to a5. But both moves are possible. And here d4 was played. So Hans is, as I've said, improving and trying to create counterplay on the queen side as well as in the center. But here Fabiano is also doing his thing and playing g4, knight drops back, and again another pawn move, h5. This looks really scary, but actually if white defends properly or accurately, white could be fine, but at least right now black is the side who has the slight edge. Here Hans plays the best defending move, knight a3, with the idea of maybe going back knight c2 with this very nice maneuver of this knight here, because development is still very important at this point. Fabiano maneuvers his knight as well, knight e6, and after b6. B6 here is a move that is, it is the best move in this position, but definitely it needs a lot of calculation here, and Hans played this move b6 after thinking for some time, actually. c6 was played, but now for white actually, bishop a2 back. White is somehow losing ideas because the pawn structure here are already fixed. White can't really do anything because even if white were to take, black is just gonna ignore everything and just push the pawns on the king side here. So for Hans here, he needs to create some counterplay, and that is why he played bishop a2 first, with the idea of maybe in the future, this knight could somehow jump to c4 and trying to pressure the pawn. This is the idea, but it's a little bit slow. Knight g5. So Fabiano is still like calmly playing out each move and also like giving out some threats. So here knight d3 was played. Hans is following his idea here with the idea of knight c4 and putting pressure on the e5 pawn on the next move. But again, it is way too slow here, and Fabiano plays the move knight g6. He is not greedy to take the pawn on e4 because after this move, suddenly white is back into the game with the move rook e1. And black's king, just to be aware of it, the king is still in the center of the board, and by opening up the center, it is white who is the side that is going to be benefited. And here, this rook just simply eyes up the king and also attacks the knight, attacks the pawn, and now white is already better. But here after the move knight g6 here, defending the pawn, not doing anything in the center, and now with the idea of starting to push the pawns. And here for white played knight c4 with the idea, of course, pressuring these pawns, but it's not really that effective. And here the best move for black is actually to play this really strange looking move, a5. It is a move that, or you can also go a6. It is like a move that has no link or nothing related to all of these moves that black has played in the earlier moves. Like suddenly you were just like maneuvering your pieces, pushing your pawns on the king side, and suddenly you just go for a pawn move on the queen side for nothing. Well, actually, it is for something, because white, as I said, is trying to create counterplay on the queen side, and if you play this move a6 or a5, you fix everything completely, and with that, white is just simply hopeless with nothing to do, no counterplay able to create, and only to wait for black's attack on the king side. So a6 is a really detailed move here, but of course really hard to spot. And in the game, Fabi also missed it and played this move bishop e6. And here bishop a3. But as you can see, there are 3 mistakes in a row by Hans, and it is just way too much. His idea, as I said, attacking these pawns, but it is not really the main point here. And even for black can just ignore it. Well, here Fabiano takes the knight on c4, bishop takes. At least he gets rid of one attacker of the e5 pawn. And now he finally starts action on the king side, and it's a beautiful play. f3, first of all, white can't really take and instead blocks or fix the pawn structure with g3. But now, a very logical outcome, h4, queen c2, takes. Even here, Fabi is not forgetting to take a pawn on b6. It's a free pawn, why not take it? Takes, rook comes to e1, desperately trying to defend, but already the position is just falling apart. There's nothing that white can do here, basically. Rook d8, well, this is a slight inaccuracy. Actually here, if you want to get the position so messy, you can even play this move d5. Isn't this just such a funny pawn structure and a really rare pawn structure to ever reach? Here, the bishop attacks the bishop on a3, so most likely also attacks the bishop on c4. So let's say if you were to take and open up everything, bishop takes a3 and knight takes e5. It's really messy, but at the end, with some accurate calculation, this is completely winning and fine for black. But of course, it might look a little bit scary and complex for you to think. And that is why in the game, Fabiano decides to go for this more calm move, rook d8, d5. Now, rook d7 with this really actually nice idea of doubling the rooks on the h file. This was Fabi's idea, and it sure is also a pretty effective one. D takes c6, b takes c6, bishop c1 back. But already this is just way too hard to stop black from simply just opening up, ripping open white's king side, and it's a beautiful play. Rook dh7, bishop takes g5, queen takes g5, and the rest is just very clean by Fabiano because also there's nothing that Hans can do. Queen b3, desperately trying to open up with queen takes b6, and maybe there are some checks, but it doesn't work because white is just simply too slow. And after h takes g3 here, Hans took the pawn on b6, but now the final move, not the final move, but the like the follow-up idea, queen h4. And now with the idea of mate in 1, and it is unstoppable. Well, you could play h3, but simply there's just g takes f2, or even you can just take queen h3. This is mate in 6. But here, like Hans just played this move, queen b8 check, and now the final move, king e7. And here Hans simply just resigned. Why? Because after, well, white can still give a couple of checks, but after king f6, let's say you give another check and bishop e7, and here white just simply runs out of available checks and mate is unstoppable. And if there is any other possibilities, we'll actually know. This is the move that can keep the longest checks, but it's just only 2 moves, and it's game over. So here Hans just resigned, and this is a very beautiful and clean win by Fabiano. He had a beautiful maneuver of his pieces, his knight and the rooks as well. This was a very important win by him because Hans was one of the biggest rivals for him in this whole tournament. And now he is 5 out of 7. So really decisive game actually. And the follow-up games were also really well played by him. So he definitely deserved this champion title. And what will happen in the 2026 US Championship? No one knows, but if he keeps on winning this whole thing, he will just break the record of Bobby Fischer of 4 in a row win of this event and creating history. Alright, but now hope you guys enjoyed my recap of this beautiful game and as well as this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for watching and please subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!